Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
We hope you enjoy listening to this podcast of St. Louis on the Air, brought to you by University College at Washington University, with undergraduate and graduate programs part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. St. Louis Mayor Lyda Krewson joins us to talk about the state of the city. Great to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be with you, Don. I always love coming to St. Louis Public Radio.
Happy New Year to you. Let's talk about Mike Parson for just a second, because It's just happened. Did you hear anything yesterday you found particularly encouraging for the city of St. Louis and the things he had to say?
Well, I think, he talks a lot about workforce development and, of course, about infrastructure, and both of those things are very big topics for St. Louis. And so I think that to the extent particularly that the state can help us with those things, that's encouraging to me.
What are our most pressing needs in that area? In those areas, I should say.
Well, those are two really different areas, but certainly pressing needs includes funding for bridges in the city of St. Louis. We rely a lot on federal funds and local matches to do that, but we have a list of bridges that they're still safe, or we would close them, but they really need to be repaired or rebuilt, and so that's of course a big thing.
Big problem throughout the entire state. Needless to say, they've been let go for a long time.
Absolutely. And when the last issue was on the ballot, which of course we all know failed, there was a fairly significant amount of funds in that would have come to the city of St. Louis and the St. Louis region in order to help us with bridges and roads and that sort of thing. And there's never enough money for that. We know that. That's true across the country.
Well, one of the things people are talking about these days is the Better Together report that is being compiled, the prospect for city-county union cooperation merger, whatever it's going to wind up being. When do you expect that report, and what do you hope to see in it?
Well, it's my understanding that the report's going to come out about the end of January. So that's only a couple, 2-3 weeks away at this point. A lot has been written about it already because, of course, there are a lot of people I think that they're talking to around town. I don't know, have they been on your show? That would be great.
They're going to, as soon as the report comes out, they will be. Yeah.
Good. I think that would be terrific. So the way I see this is the idea here is to take the old city, the current city, take the old city and the old county and put it together as a new city. One new city. We'd have a population about the size of Dallas. We'd be the 9th or 10th largest city in the country. We would be making the big decisions together, as all thinking as one, at least city and county thinking as one. And so I think it's really something that over time has it's proven that the fractured nature of our government, or the fragmented nature of our governments, is a really difficult thing for our region. We have 55 police departments, I think 88 now municipalities. We have many, many municipal courts that have caused us all told difficulty over the years, and so I really think that having one police department, one municipal court system would allow us to have consistent standards, consistent training, and much more standardized approach to policing and to municipal courts.
A lot of people think it's a very inefficient system that we have now. There are also a lot of people who like being close to their government, close to their council people and their mayors and their police officers.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's no reason that they would not be close to their police department or in the future, because of course we would still be policing the entire area, and there'd still be police stations, and there'd still be districts or whatever they're going to call them. And so I think that there'll still be a lot of ability to be close to municipal courts and to your police department, but there also will be consistent standards and consistent policing throughout the area. And what works for some people well now doesn't work for everybody.
One of the things that hasn't been talked about much, but I know is a factor in all of this, at least among the African American community, is that this would tend to dilute the political clout, if you will, of African Americans and their politicians.
Well, I don't think that is the case. I think what's being proposed is that there would be a big city council, or I think they're planning to call it a council, not a board of aldermen, same thing. And so I do believe that there would still be the opportunity. You'd represent more people, maybe something more like what a state rep represents in terms of population. But I believe there certainly would be continuing opportunities for election of African Americans across the region, and I think they, frankly, would have more clout, more power.
A council I have seen in print someplace of 33 members sounds a little unwieldy to me.
Well, heck, we got 28 aldermen in a city of 300,000. I think 33. Or 30 or 35 for that matter. I think that's fine. We have about 33 state reps in the St. Louis City and County. And I don't think you want to go too small because people are used to knowing their government. And so I don't think 33 representatives is bad for a population of 1.4 million people. I mean, we could fuss over whether it's 30 or 35, but
Is Better Together the only organization to drive this train? Should there be other options out there, perhaps from other organizations, what have you?
Well, I don't think they are the only organization that should drive the train, but they are the organization that has driven this at this point in time. We have all talked about for decades the fragmentation of our government. And I think with the events around the death of Michael Brown and the revealing the municipal courts and all of their issues, one entity stood up and said, we really have to study this. We really have to look at this. Other people could do it, but other people haven't done it. And it's really hard. This is hard work. It's really hard to think about and to think about what would this be like? I mean, I have, I'm concerned about the city employees. I'm concerned about how we would put our police departments together. I'm concerned about who's going to pick up the trash and who's going to plow the streets. But we aren't the only city in this United States that has those issues, and so I think there are things that can be worked out with leaving city employees with their seniority intact, with their benefits intact, and being part of something bigger.
Chief Belmer in St. Louis County, independent of whatever's going on with Better Together, has proposed a merger of the two police departments, regardless of what happens. That sound like a good idea to you?
I don't think that handles the issue. What would we have? St. Louis City is an excellent police department. St. Louis County, as I know it, is also an excellent police department. So we'd take the two biggest police departments, and then we'd have one big police department, and we'd still have 53 little police departments. I don't think that makes any sense. I was not particularly enamored with Chief Belmar's comments, although he's a guy that I've been around a number of times and I like him, but I don't think those comments were appropriate.
One other question with regard to the potential for this union of some sort is how it's voted upon. Now, I know you and Steve Stenger think that it should be a statewide vote, correct? You're getting some pushback on that from certain legislators.
Sure. I think the way I understand it, what's being proposed is a new type of county, one that doesn't exist in the state constitution as it is now. And so that has to be a statewide vote. That's as I understand it. A statewide vote is how the city of St. Louis got control of its police department. It's how we got home rule. It's how we do a number of things because we live in the state of Missouri and we live under the Constitution of the state of Missouri. So in order for us to be able to combine police departments and municipal courts, there has to be a new type of city-county, and that requires a statewide vote. I understand the concerns about that. But I think that, we have to do a statewide vote. And then in the way I look at it is I certainly would be very encouraged if the city voters and the county voters were also in favor of it.
Which brings to mind the potential scenario for having a statewide vote and having it determined that either the city or the county or both voted against it, and yet it still passed.
Anything is possible, and that is a possibility. But I think it's our job to explain this to folks, explain what it will be like afterwards. And, the vote is a long ways away. I think it's 20 months away or maybe longer. Maybe it's 22 months away. It's a long time away. We're going to have a lot of time to talk about this. But, there are things that have to be created by a statewide vote.
Okay, well, let's move on to some other things. Most recently, the Equity Indicators report came out through the city of St. Louis. You're well aware of that through your office, as a matter of fact. Wasn't very flattering. Gave the city, a 45.57 out of 100.
Right.
If I got those grades in high school, I'd still be there.
Right. So I think it's encouraging that we had the guts to measure it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's encouraging that we had the guts to measure it. And we could have gone, it was also one of the mandates of the Ferguson Commission report. So we are the first city in this region to measure what the equity indicators are. I think it confirmed a lot of things that we know, that we all know. And that is that the results, your opportunities and your lifestyle in our community have been and continue today to be somewhat determined by where you're born, what zip code you're born in, what your race is, what your parents do for a living, etc. We know that is the case. So we've measured it, and you can say it's not very flattering. I would agree with that. I look at it in a different way, which is that it helps us pinpoint even more what we need to work on. We know that intuitively we know that we need much more early childhood education. And if you ever doubted that, take a look at the Equity Indicators report. Now, a big challenge to figure out how to fund that. We think the state should be at the table funding that. That has not been the case. But if we want to change the trajectory of individuals, of kids, of families in our region and in our state, we have to look at it from the viewpoint of education. I did hear the governor say yesterday, I'm not interested in building any more prisons. I personally was very glad to hear that. So how do you avoid that? I mean, there are a lot of things along the way, and one of them is early childhood education. And our report bears that out, that we have major differences in a number of areas, but certainly in kids.
I don't think this caught a lot of people by surprise. I mean, these problems have been around for a long time and just persist without any correction.
Well, persist without correction. These are really long-term, decades and generational issues. So you have to start by measuring it, and you make small steps. I mean, we know in the city of St. Louis, for example, and this is still today is controversial, but we know that charter schools, that was a step in a direction. We now have 11,000 kids in the city of St. Louis that go to charter schools. They're not all better than St. Louis public schools, but some of them are better. So we, as a society, have to figure out what to do with this. This is way bigger than what one mayor is going to do in 1 year or in 4 years, but I do think that putting the information out there is a step in the right direction. Is
there an immediate next step? Other than just having measured this now, I mean...
Well, there are a number of things, and I think we talked about this at one time, but we have Fuse Fellows, Fuse, F-U-S-E, that's an organization. So we have 2 Fuse Fellows right now that are working with us in the city, and this is a year-long assignment. And one of them is working on a criminal justice coordinating council, helping us establish that. The other one is working on bail reform, helping us address that. The third one, which we don't have on staff yet, but that we hope we'll have this spring, will be helping us with minority recruiting in our police department. So those are 3 things going on right now, which begin to help us establish policy and do things a little different in terms of those 3 subjects. So, it's all a process, and we work on all of it every day.
We are talking with Mayor Lyda Krewson of the City of St. Louis. We'll have to take a break, and we'll do that now, and come back and continue this conversation. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Thank you for listening to this St. Louis on the Air podcast supported by University College at Washington University, with undergraduate and graduate programs part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
And welcome back to our conversation with St. Louis Mayor Lyda Krewson. Let's talk about privatization of the airport now. Where do we stand on that? I saw something the other day indicating that we might learn more quickly than previously thought as to what the next move is going to be.
Oh, I don't think we're going to learn more quickly than previously thought. What we're hoping is to have a request for qualifications, an RFQ, out in the first quarter. And, we started this back in August, really, in earnest. And so that request for qualifications would just go out to folks to see who might be qualified to actually respond to the request for proposal. We're still a good year away, maybe a year and a half away from having anything substantial to consider. And so that's the important thing is, well, what do we actually have in front of us to consider once the RFQ and the RFP process are established and are out?
Does smart money say this is going to happen?
I would not make that bet that it is going to happen, but I think certainly it's a possibility. This is difficult. This is hard. You know that Midway Airport in Chicago has gone through this twice now, and they have not chosen to. The first time it wasn't their choice. The Lehman Brothers was on their line slip, and they couldn't make that close. The second time they only got one proposal, and Mayor Rahm Emanuel said, "We're not going to go forward with just one proposal." So this is a very big and complex deal. So. But I think it is certainly worth considering so that we potentially get a better airport, which helps us have our airport to be an economic asset to our economic development efforts. So
that is good. Obviously, what's in it financially for the city, potentially?
We don't know that. There's speculation. The Business Journal speculated. Other people have speculated that, it could possibly be $1 billion, $2 billion. Some people speculated it more than that. We don't know. That's all what we will learn when we get responses to the request for proposals. There are so many variables in that. One of which is, well, what sort of opportunity do they think there is here in St. Louis for, maybe we'll end up needing a new terminal over time. Who knows? So there's all those kinds of things to consider. And I'm just not going to prejudge this. I think it's something worth looking at.
Too early for you to say you're leaning one way or the other.
I'm not leaning one way or the other. The only way I'm leaning is let's get the information in front of us so that we can actually make a consideration.
Well, on the list of your kind of a list of to-do things, I notice you have here that one of the things you want to do is explore new ways, as I have it here, of doing business at the airport. What does that mean?
Well, that means exactly new ways of doing business at the airport means considering having a private operator operate the airport. We will never sell the airport. I should say that again. We're not going to sell the airport. It's a matter of, can someone else operate that airport in a way that brings us a better airport and a better asset for our region.
You mentioned maybe building a new terminal. That's way down the road if it ever happens at all.
I'm just saying, who knows?
But I bring that up because one of the things we hear a lot about our airport is the fact that it's the first impression and image that people coming to this town get, and that it's not a very favorable image. It's kind of a shabby relic, if you will.
Well, I will say, Terminal 1, which is what we call the old terminal, is a beautiful piece of architecture. And something, in my view, certainly worth saving. But then, we've added on to our airport over the years and added on to it and added on to it. And we know now that most of the business is in Terminal 2. I think our airport, the way our airport looks, I think Rhonda Hamnabrigi does a good job of operating that airport, keeping it clean and making sure that it's as good as possible. But, you got to look at a long time to figure out what needs to be done there.
I wish I could remember the figure I saw the other day of the number of passengers who came through Lambert.
15 million.
15 million.
15 million passengers came through, and that's up from the year before, which was 14 million. And I don't have the exact numbers, but so we do have a few more flights to our airport now, and we have more passenger traffic. We are very appreciative of Southwest Airlines, and they are the biggest airline there. More than half of the traffic is through Southwest Airlines, and then of course American, United. Once I go down that road of naming airlines, of course I've left some out, but we appreciate all of that.
Yeah. Let's move on to the subject now of public safety. And the material that you're putting out for the start of 2019, you seem pretty content. Well, probably the wrong word, but you're encouraged by the fact that the violent crime figures seem to be going down.
Yes, but I'm not at all content with that. So I have to.
I avoided using that word. I started to, but avoided it.
We're not at all content with that. We're glad that the violent crime is down in 2018 from where it was in 2017. Of course, we're glad about that. But one violent crime is one too many. And a couple of things. One, it appears to the police department, and they're the experts here, that the rectangle that was focused on, that sort of a focus actually does have an impact. And so Chief Hayden has said we're going to expand, and we're going to add 2 more areas to it, an area in Dutchtown and an area in downtown, and continue to have what's known as the Hayden's rectangle. But so it is more focused there, and now in those 3 areas. But we also know that we're still 130 or so officers short, and so we're working every day to recruit those officers. Last week I was just at a police graduation. If you've never been to one, I suggest you go. It's like most graduations. It's inspiring. 22 young people graduated. And so we're continue to work on recruiting. We have a new cadet program. We have 36 young people in the cadet program. That means you got to be 18 to go in the cadet program. It's from 18 to 21. Work part-time at the police department, go to school part-time or full-time, and make $13 an hour through the cadet program. So we continue to do those things. But
well, I guarantee you, if you turn on the 5 o'clock news tonight on television, the first 10 minutes is going to be crime news, and it's mostly going to be focused in the city of St. Louis. There's an image problem.
Of course. I wish we could turn on the news, the 5 o'clock or the 6 o'clock or the 10 o'clock news, and see them talking about the fact that we have $8.5 billion worth of construction in the Central Corridor and throughout our city last year. I wish they would talk about the fact that we have more building permits issued in the city of St. Louis last year, by far $1.2 billion in building permits issued in the city of St. Louis last year. I wish they'd talk about that. I wish they'd talk about the New Soldiers Memorial and all of the great things that are happening, the cranes that are up around St. Louis. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be newsworthy. So yes, certainly we want to reduce crime. We want to reduce crime not because of our image problem, but because of the impact that crime has on the lives of people who are victims of crime. Not just the victim, but the entire family. So,
have you ever talked to news directors about changing the approach to news coverage?
Probably not directly. Maybe that's something that I should be doing. But we all know what's newsworthy, and they never come on the news. I always do say this: nobody ever comes on the news at 6 o'clock and says, "Hey, nothing really happened today. Why don't you all switch the channel over to Jeopardy?" They never do that. So something's going on the news that day, and based on what's going on depends on what makes it.
I saw a piece in the paper the other day, and the governor has since stepped into this, in which several lawyers work in the Wainwright building downtown were talking about moving their office to Clayton because they felt it was too dangerous downtown. The governor says this ain't going to happen. But when you read something like that, you've got to say, gee, I wish I wasn't reading this.
I found out about that last Friday afternoon. I think it was about 3 o'clock or something. And I found out about it because a reporter saw it in something that had been submitted in the budget. And what I did was I called the Joel Walters, who's the director of the Department of Revenue, which is the department that this was in, to say, so tell me about this. This is what it reads in the budget. Now, he was pretty apologetic. His answer was, well, they do more business at the county courthouse, and so they don't want to have to drive from the city to the county. I said, well, this is pretty detrimental to our city. I think it's the mayor's job to fight for every single job in the city of St. Louis, and that includes those 6 or 7 people who work in the Wainwright building. I never talked with the governor about it. I don't know if the director of revenue did or not, but by about 4:15, I was on the phone talking with him.
Yeah. And he basically said, I'm not going to put that in the budget. That's not going to happen.
Well, the governor said that,
exactly,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a good result. I appreciated that.
Yeah. We've got a city primary coming up. Do you have any favorites?
I have not made an endorsement in the city primary. It's about 50 days away, I think it is. It's early March, first Tuesday in March. And you can tell by looking at the news that it's election season. I will just say that. But that's how I got this seat as well. Mm-hmm. So, that's I think a good way that we do it in this country, which is to elect people and we fuss and fight during the campaign, and then in the end, hopefully, we all come back together.
In this country, it seems anymore that it's always election season someplace, and that's
true.
All we talk about anymore.
That's true.
I noticed, too, that you're having some fundraisers yourself, and that indicates to me that you're set on running for another term. Is that
of course.
firm?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
I am, and you can't get everything that you want done in 4 years, and so I'm having an event in February. So, I will say that politics in this country and in this city as well is a lot less civil than it used to be, and I've always been frustrated by something the Post published one time that called me Mayor Mild. And I don't think I'm mild at all. What I do think is that I'm civil and that I'm fair. And so I don't think that what we're seeing in terms of tone is very helpful to the way we all go forward.
Yeah. It's a problem, no question about it. Well, here we are in 2019, a few weeks in, and you're already thinking about re-election. What are the priorities as you're establishing them right now? I have a list in front of me here, but there are certain of them I'm sure you think are more important than others.
Well, we have a lot of things that we've been working on and that we will continue to work on, and I'll tick through a few of them. Certainly, vacancy. We know that we have 25,000 vacant parcels in the city of St. Louis. And so a couple of things there. One is, yes, some demolition. This past year, in 2018, we demoed 313 buildings. We have another 270 that are contracted for. We have a shortage, frankly, of demo contractors here in the region because there hasn't been much demo done lately. But the other thing that we are really getting ready to kick off, and there's a board bill going through the Board of Aldermen right now, is Prop NS. That's neighborhood stabilization, and that is up to $6 million a year to stabilize LRA-owned, city-owned buildings that we think can be saved, preserved, renovated, and reoccupied. So that would mean maybe putting a new roof on those buildings or gutters or tuck pointing. Water is the biggest detriment to a new building. So certainly Prop NS. I talked briefly about our Fuse Fellows and about the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and bail reform, recruiting for the police department. This is in some ways it's a small thing, but STL Youth Jobs, I don't know if you're familiar with that. That is a program where last summer we hired 750 young people. We didn't hire them. Companies hired them, 750 young people. We know that a summer job can change the trajectory of a young person's life. And so we are making a push here in a couple of weeks. It's about a month, I guess, away, to encourage more companies to contribute to STL Youth Jobs, one, and secondly, to be able to employ kids about 15 to 20 hours a week. These are young people, 16 to 24. I call them kids, but they're young people who certainly are of working age, and we know that having money in your pocket, money that you earned, changes the way you look at the world. So that's an important thing. Of course, we are looking forward to the county passing the convention center bill so that we can expand and renovate the convention center. We're looking forward to a favorable decision on soccer. We are embarking on a new strategic plan, and this is a plan to help develop strategies, new businesses, going after business clusters. City County will be ever present with us. So those are some of the things. There's a lot of things to work on.
Pretty full plate. What about the homeless? Any ideas, plans for increasing shelter facilities for the homeless?
Well, what we believe is that, first of all, we're getting ready to have a really cold weekend. It looks like, if you believe the weather guys and gals. And so it looks like we're getting ready to have a really cold weekend. The city partners with Winter Outreach, which is an all-volunteer-led organization, for really reaching out to people on the street, for transporting people to shelter beds. What we believe is that the real solution to homelessness is a housing first model, and that means getting people into housing. But we also know that in really severe weather, we have to focus on this emergency shelter. So we believe there are enough spaces for all of the folks that we can persuade to get off the streets. And that is not an easy thing. I've spent a lot of time on this subject with a lot of different folks, and we are constantly outreaching, as are many other organizations, St. Patrick's Center, Gateway 1-8, a lot of organizations, to try to get people off the streets.
We've talked about this before with other guests, and the issue of city-county cooperation on this issue always comes up, and the feeling is more could be done between these two entities to deal with this problem.
I think that what we have is a situation where most of the services are in the city. And that means folks go to where the services are. I would really like to see city and county, and frankly even a wider, the MSA area, come together to provide more services throughout the region. It's about cooperation, it's about funding, it's about applying for federal funds. So yes, I think that would be really helpful. I talked to a woman one night on the telephone who said to me, that's back when I had a landline, and said to me, she lived in a suburb, well, we don't have any homeless out here. And I said, well, you do, and maybe they're coming into the city in order to get services. But yes, I think a more geographically dispersed solution would be a better solution.
Yeah. Our time is winding down, but calls are starting to come in, and I'd like to take at least one. We'll bring in Chris, calling from St. Louis. Chris, thank you for waiting. You're on the air with Mayor Krewson.
Thank you for taking my call. I have to say that I have been severely disappointed with the mayor with regard to what she talked about in very strong terms during the campaign, and that was how crime and safety was going to be her number one priority. I do not feel that she has made it her number one priority. She just listed things she's working on. I didn't hear, and I know she spoke to it earlier in the conversation, but I can tell you as a lifelong city resident and live in the Southampton neighborhood, grew up on the hill, I've never felt less secure. We just had a terrible incident on Macklin, a very popular restaurant bar. 3 masked gunmen come in at 10 o'clock in the evening, rob all the patrons. When you're going to make something your number one priority, you need to follow up on that. You need to, if nothing else, show some leadership, talk about it, get it out front on a continual basis.
Chris,
I know you're trying to hire more police officers and so forth, but I don't feel like you've made it the number one priority.
Chris got the point. Let's get the mayor to respond.
Thanks, Chris. Public safety is and has been my entire term the number one priority, and it continues to be that. It is the number one item in our budget. I personally campaigned extensively to raise police officers' salaries. We passed Proposition P about a year ago, and meet weekly and talk sometimes daily to both our public safety director, Jimmy Edwards, and a police chief, John Hayden, and other officers. Public safety is absolutely mostly about the enforcement side of things, but it is also about having a summer job for a kid. So I absolutely agree with you that public safety is still job one for the mayor and for all of our departments. That's why we focused on vacant buildings. Nothing good happens in a vacant building. So it's not you can do one thing and solve it. You have to do everything, and that includes we have to support our police officers, we have to support our firefighters, of course, and EMS workers, and that Proposition P was a huge thing. That's a 50-cent sales tax that went into effect. That is $20 million a year for additional salaries and benefits for police officers and firefighters. I agree with you 100%. It's that we have to do all of those things.
I'll take one more call, but time is getting away. Kirsten in St. Louis, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi. I really appreciate the mayor's approach at trying to be proactive because you can't predict crime, and it's very difficult to do so. So things happen. But what I want to know is regarding the Citizen Service Bureau and preventing problems with the city and problems with people's property. I know I personally had damage to my vehicle from an alley that was messed up and called into the Citizen Service Bureau back in May, and I still have not had a resolution in my case. And I found out that there's only 4 people that are assigned to that department, and there's no structural follow-up as far as there's a Missouri program with the state that follows up on your complaints. Can you do something about that for us?
You know, I'm not familiar with the Missouri program, but the Citizen Service Bureau handles hundreds, I think I've forgotten the number now, 120,000 calls last year. But I think what you're referring to is you must have a claim against the city for some damage because I don't know if it was a pothole or what it was. And so that would be with our legal department now. We are intent on improving the service to citizens, and whether it's potholes, and right now I can tell you, I drive around these streets too. When you have a snowstorm, we're getting ready to have another one, we're going to have more and more potholes, but calling them into the Citizen Service Bureau or tweeting to the Citizen Service Bureau or going online talking to them, it's absolutely a priority for us to fix those things, whether it's potholes or a dead tree or whatever the complaint might be. Your situation sounds like it's maybe a claim with our legal department, and if you want to tweet to me or do something, I'll certainly follow up on it.
The problem is that there's no follow-up from the Citizen Service Bureau. Sometimes complaints fall through the cracks because there's not an automated system to show it never got transferred to the legal department. So that's what I'm asking. Can you look into?
I see. I understand that. Yes, I absolutely will. We are posted a big article about this just over the weekend, and one of the things that we have done is we're beginning to allow the person that addresses the complaint to write back to you, or to enter the response to that complaint, even if it is we can't trim the tree till next summer, if that's the response. So yeah, absolutely, we're trying to get tablets for all the folks who work in those departments so that they're entering the information real time and not having to print out paper and come back. So yes, I hear your issue.
We've got to wrap it up, but one of our reporters is asking, and I'm asking you to reiterate, I believe, you're not going to make an endorsement in the Board of Aldermanic President race.
Well, I haven't made an endorsement yet.
Oh, one might come. We might have
It's
one.
almost 2 months away, Don.
I know it, but it's always election time everywhere. Mayor Lyda Krewson, thank you so much for being with us and spending this time. Great to see you again. Once again, Happy New Year to you,
Happy New Year to you.
and have a good year.
I love coming on with you. Thank you.
We love having you.
Great.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.